up to you whether you want to wear the tallit or not. I'm going to do prayer for our country for July 4th for redemption. I'll just find it. On page 10, Hine Matov, how nice it is, how wonderful for us all to be here together. Page 10.
Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine Matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Shevet achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov. Shevet achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad, hinei ma tov u'manayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov, yalalai, yalalalalai. Hine matov, yalalai, yalalalalai. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone. This is Ariana Finkelstein. She's going to be with us this Shabbat and for 2 other Shabbats throughout the summer, I think all of them in July. We're very excited to have her here, and I've been telling her how nice everybody is. So I just relax and enjoy. We're all here to celebrate Shabbat together, and it feels really nice to be with you. And you know Don. We are going to turn to page 2 and light Shabbat candles. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lahadlik ner shel Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue with Shabbat. welcoming. This time we welcome in the messengers of peace, the angels, on page 24, Shalom Alechem.
Shalom Alechem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Ruachem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Baruch Ni Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon.
Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Tzidchem Leshalom, Malachei Hashalom, Malachei Elyon. Mi Melech Malachei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
Continuing with Kabbalat Shabbat, welcoming Shabbat on page 13. This is Psalm 96, the second paragraph at the bottom of the page. Yismechu Hashamayim.
Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam uvelo. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam uvelo. Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam, Yiram hayam uvelo. Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, Yismechu Hashamayim, v'tagel haaretz.
We turn ahead now to Psalm 29 on the end of it on page 19. Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain. God gives strength to our people.
Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain, Adonai Yevarech et Amo. Adonai Oz, Le'amo Yitain, Adonai
We turn now to page 20 to Lecha Dodi. We welcomed in Shabbat with light. We welcome the Shabbat messengers of peace, the angels, and now we welcome in the Shabbat presence with Lecha Dodi. As we get to the last paragraph, B'Oi B'Shalom, we turn to face the doorway and welcome in Shabbat.
Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Sha'amor v'zachor b'dibor echad, yishmi'anu el meuchad. Adonai echad u'shemo echad, l'Hashem ol tiferet v'litiva. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'necha, ki makor ha'beracha. Me'erosh miketem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila. Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Yitoreri, ki va'orech mi'ori, uri shedaberi, kevod Adonai al yadach nigla. B'Oi Shalom, ateret bala, am b'simcha u'betzola, toch emunei am segula. B'Oi chala, Lecha Dodi, Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Lecha Dodi likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabela.
So now that you're standing, please take this opportunity to wish one another Shabbat Shalom. If there's someone here you've never met before, take the opportunity to introduce yourself. I can't turn my mic off. Shabbat Shalom. You're doing great. We continue on page 22. Every day has a psalm, and Psalm 92 is a psalm for Shabbat. Page 22. We're going to be doing Tzadik Katamar as the indented part towards the bottom.
Tzadik Katamar yifrach, ke'erez mavanon yizkeh, shetuli eved Adonai, lechatzrot Eloheinu.
page 26, we continue with Chetzi Kaddish. We punctuate, we make a transition between, or a mark actually, between the first part of the service, Kabbalat Shabbat, and the rest of the evening service, Chetzi Kaddish. Please rise and body your spirit for Baruch Hu, page 28.
Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chochma poteach she'arim, uvitvuna meshana itim, umachalif et tazmanim, umisader et kochavim, b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono, borayom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech, v'choshech mipnei or, uma'avir yom umevi layla, uma'avdil ben yom uvein layla Adonai tzvaot shemo. Achai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ad, Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim.
Beit Yisrael, Avecha ahavta, Amcha ahavta, Torah u'mitzvot, Chukim u'mishpatim, Otanu limadeta, Otanu limadeta. Al ken Adonai Eloheinu b'shochmeinu, uvkumenu nasiach bechukecha, v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha, u'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed, ki hem chayenu, ve'orech yameinu, uvahem negeyomam v'layla, negeyomam v'layla. Yahavata tazim, mimele olamim, Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev amo Yisrael, Ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kavod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. Continuing on page 36.
Ve'ahavta
Et Adonai ובכל לבבך, ובכל נפשך, ובכל מאודך, והיו הדברים האלה, אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבבך, ושיננתם לבניך, ודיברתם, בשבתך בביתך, ובלכתך בדרך, ובשוכבך ובקומך, וקשרתם לאות על ידך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך, למען תזכרו עשיתם את כל מצוותיי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים, להיות לכם אלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
So Michamocha is our next prayer, and we understand Michamocha to be our prayer of redemption. Our people sang it when they were crossing or after crossing the sea after being freed from slavery in Egypt. It's a song of celebration of freedom, of religious freedom. So I thought, this being July 4th weekend, we might do a little prayer for our country, because America is the land of the free, and we have a lot of freedoms living here. It's clearly not perfect, but the fact that I can say that it's not perfect means that we have a lot of freedoms, and we ought not to forget those. So we are going to do a prayer for our country together on page 258, if you would turn there, and then we'll continue with Michamocha after that. So I think we'll just go to the O Guardian of Life and Liberty part. If you'll join me. O Guardian of Life and Liberty, may our nation always merit your protection. Teach us to give thanks for what we have by sharing it with those who are in need. Keep our eyes open to the wonders of creation and alert to the care of the earth. May we never be lazy in the work of peace. May we honor those who have died in defense of our ideals. Grant our leaders wisdom and forbearance. May they govern with justice and compassion. Help us all to appreciate one another and to respect the many ways that we may serve you. May our homes be safe from affliction and strife, and our country be sound in body and spirit. Page 40, Michamocha. ונאמר כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו ברוך אתה אדוני גאל ישראל. Page 42, השכיבנו. We ask God to protect us as we approach the nightfall, it's a time of uncertainty, time of vulnerability for all of us. We ask God to protect our going out and our coming in. We ask God to spread over us a Sukkot Shalom, a Sukkah shelter of peace. We ask that for all of us, that it's come to be our practice now to mention, to have a moment of connection with those in our community, our family, our friends who are in need of healing, healing of body, healing of spirit. And even as we read all these names, and I invite you to add more names, we'll recognize that there's still so many others throughout the world who we don't know are in the Shabbat need of healing. Our prayers, that kind of energy as well. So tonight we hold in our hearts Ira Altshuler, Julie Arnheim, Alex Botkin, Howard Bregman, Fern Diamond, Ann Fay, Stephen Fisher, Judy Forrest, Ken Franklin, Piers Haggard, Aryaman Harlalka, David Mordechai HaKohen, Linda Jube, Naum Kaplan, Carol Kaufman, Sylvia Kasparowski, Al Camper, Todd Cart, Lee Kramer, Albert Lepre, Susan Lother, Hindasara Bathana Pearl, Sophie Matiash, Joanne Mandel, Ken Markison, Jonathan Miller, Edward Mims, Joanne Newman, Harav Shmuel Ephraim Ben Penina, Lev Podorovsky, Jonathan Robeson, Mike Rosen, Oliver Scheibel, Howard Schuman, Adam Schusterman, John Spear, Bill Stein, Jan Stoller, Jackie Student, Jordan Wilson, Alan Wolk. Their names to Misha Barach tonight. Misha Barach Avotenu v'Imotenu Avraham Yitzchak v'Yaakov Sarivka Rachel v'Leah Hu Yavarach Hu Yerapeh et HaCholim. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill.
Baruch atah Adonai, Aborei Sukkot Shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Ve'al Yerushalayim ve'al kol amo. Ve'al Yerushalayim shalom. Baruch atah Adonai, Aborei Sukkot Shalom. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael. Shalom aleinu ve'al kol amo Yisrael.
And on page 44 at the top of the page, Vishamru, it's a reminder of our covenant with God to keep Shabbat. Vishamru.
Bnei Israel et HaShabbat, לעשות את השבת, לצורתם בברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת. מקודש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורת ברית עולם.
Turn now to the tefillah, begins with the opening meditation on page 46. Please rise and body your spirit as you are able.
Adonai sebatai tiftach ufia gitehilatacha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotzeinu v'imotzeinu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Keonei Hakol, וזוכר חסדי אבות ואימהות, ומביא גאולה לבני בניהם, למען שמו באהבה.
מלך עוזר ומושיע ומגן, ברוך אתה אדוני,
מגן אברהם
בעזרת שרה. אתה גיבור לעולם אדוני, מחיה הכל את הרב להושיע, מוריד הטל, מכלכל חיים בחסד, מחיה הכל ברחמים רבים.
סומך נופלים ורופא חולים, ומצהיר אסורים, ומקיים אמונתו לשני עפר. מי כמוך בעל גבורות, ומי דומה לך, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה להחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני, מחיה הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהלוך הסלע. ברוך אתה אדוני, האל הקדוש.
You may be seated. Please continue silently with the Kedusha through page 62. So as some of you know, last week we celebrated with Pride Shabbat, and but we didn't have our guest speaker. And so tonight we do. Terry Starrett, who is the president of the Women of Rodef Shalom, and our person who is going to speak to us about Korach, not Korach.
Torah too.
Korach too?
I got a little bit of that.
Oh, there. Okay, so last week's Torah portion, but then you snuck in some of this week. So Terry is just recovering from COVID and has the voice to prove it. So we are really grateful that you're here. I'm thinking that maybe you should have a microphone and a microphone.
Probably. I mean, normally anybody can hear me.
And are you going to keep your mask on? I guess you have to keep your mask on. Do you have to keep your mask on?
Oh,
Doctors?
I don't have to, but I will.
Okay.
I don't want you to get sick.
I'm going over there.
Okay. Whoops. All right. Well, hi. I'm really glad to be here today. Honestly, I'm really glad I'm better and I'm negative now. But pride is certainly something that is significant in my life. I am adding this a little bit, but I have been involved with this synagogue for about 30 years, I guess, and I will talk a little bit about that in the Var Torah, but I am really glad to be here in person. So I was looking up some things as I had to recuperate, and in June of 2013, prior to becoming a rabbi, Susie Jacobson from Temple Israel in Boston, Massachusetts, gave a Devar Torah. I found inspiration and relatability in her reading. This is part of what she said. It is such an honor to give the Devar Torah this evening. It feels really incredible that I have the opportunity to open a dialogue with you during Pride Shabbat, as of yesterday, Pride, but we'll go on with that. The entire month of June is National Gay, Lesbian, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer plus Pride Month. Just like the Jewish liturgical calendar has its holidays, celebrations, and memorials, this community has a ritual calendar all its own. And June is pretty much the high holidays of the gay calendar. Now, just like any good Jewish holiday, Pride has its fun, outgoing moments of celebration. These are the loud moments, parties, music, giant floats filled with sequins and amazing costumes. These are the moments when all those who identify with the LGBTQ++ community, young and old, rich or poor, every race and ethnicity, radicals, liberals, and conservatives all come together to celebrate their identity in public with pride and joy and glitter. It is beautiful, it is fun, and it is amazingly powerful to see this community celebrated in cities all over the world with such an open heart, especially since today there are many, many queer and trans people who suffer continued oppression, marginalization, and violence. The jubilance of a parade is powerful and deep in juxtaposition with this stark reality. Gay teshuvah, or repentance, may not happen at the parade, but it can happen in other communal moments, in small gatherings, in discussions, and in synagogues, churches, and other holy places. This happens when anyone, not just queer or transgendered folks, but all community members take a step back and ask the hard questions. Do LGBTQ++ people have equitable rights? Is there full inclusion here? Who is marginalized in my community? What have I done to make the world a safer place? What does more look like? More rights, more access, more inclusion? I must admit, I really have no idea how to fully answer these questions. But thank God, as Jews, we of course have Torah to guide us and ground our conversation. But how do we do this? In my experience, Rodef Shalom congregation is already incredibly welcoming. I want to highlight that we are already doing so many things right. Even the fact that we have a yearly Pride Shabbat is an enormous step forward in the life of congregational Judaism. Many years ago, a service like this would have been very rare. LGBTQA plus designated synagogues popped up in major cities because these Jews did not feel welcome or accepted in mainstream congregations. Rodef Shalom welcomed such a pop-up synagogue over 30 years ago, Bet Tikva. Members of Bet Tikva have had the support of our rabbis, clergy, and have had the opportunity to participate in many life cycle events with the mainstream community. Some of those events have included weddings, such as my own, baby namings, such as my own children, conversions, as my wife was converted, b'nai mitzvahs of our children and also of Bet Tikva members this year. Rabbis have provided spiritual support during times of grief and laughter during times of joy. When I look back at this past year, I see that the president of our board, or I should say, he's not anymore, but he was, Matthew, and myself were both part of the LGBTQA community. Today, such mainstream synagogues have rainbow stickers on their doors, signs outside, as up the street, which says Pride Try, and many more. They proudly talk about GLBT rights and issues from the Bima. It's a whole new Jewish world. You may be saying, how does this relate to our Torah portions of last week? Or you may not be saying that. When I was planning on being here last week, I had something planned. Well, I had a great deal of time to think about it again this week. In the Torah portion last week, Rabbi Henry spoke of the 12 spies that were leaders, well respected in the community, being sent out to scout the promised land and come back and report on their findings. They all saw and experienced pretty much the same events. However, not everyone came to the same conclusion. Kind of like whispering down the lane when we were kids, not necessarily hearing, but seeing. Yes, there was a promised land, but 10 of them reported it was filled with both giant grapes and giants and fields and fortified cities. Some saw grapes and fields in a land flowing with milk and honey. Others saw, as I said, the giant grapes and fortified cities. Some saw their own inadequacies and believed the challenge was not possible to go in. Others remember God's deliverance and were willing to believe that the same God would provide for their future. However, knowing the end of the story, it is easy for us to criticize the 10 who doubted. Yet it is not easy to take risks necessary to achieve a visionary goal of the 2 that stood out. Often the fear of failure and the discomfort of facing and the uncertain events prevents people from trying to accomplish something great. However, great things are never accomplished without risk. If we try, we may fail to achieve our vision. However, if we don't try, we lose out on the reality of that vision. The Israelites in our story last week lost out on the promised land because of their unwillingness to take the risk. May we have the wisdom to discern what visions are worthy of pursuit and the courage to take the risk to achieve our visions. Since this is a Pride Shabbat, here are just a few, and I really won't go into a lot, but of things that actually past visionaries made a difference. In 1963, mind you, that would be quite a while ago, Bayard Rustin, an associate of Martin Luther King and a gay African-American man, helped organize the March on Washington that culminated with King's I Have a Dream speech. 1969, we are all familiar or have heard about the Stonewall riots in New York City. The Stonewall Inn was a gay bar in Greenwich Village in response to an unprovoked police raid on an early Saturday morning. Over 400 people, including gay, lesbian, transgender, bisexual, straight people, protested the treatment. In 1970, the first gay pride marches were held in multiple cities across the United States in honor of Stonewall. 1973, the American Psychiatric Association, after considerable advocacy by a gentleman named Frank Kameny and members of the Machine Society, changed the classification of homosexuality as a mental disorder. And it was not until 1987, 14 years later, that it was taken out of the DM, whatever the version was at that point. In San Francisco, in 1978, the rainbow flag is first flown at the Gay Freedom Parade. 1978, a well-known story of San Francisco Supervisor Harry Milk is assassinated along with the mayor, George Moscone. In 1979, there was a march on Washington. 100,000 people gathered at that time. In this week's portion of the Torah, the initial claim against Moses and Aaron is that the entire assembly of 250 people is holy, and this came from Korach, and that they should not themselves, Moses and Aaron, take over as leaders of the people. Logically, Korach talks about pushing for democracy to garner support. In reality, he wants to rule. Nonetheless, the toxic nature of his divisiveness spreads, and he manages to garner the support of unlikely allies. You will learn more tomorrow about, I hope, about the outcome. No, whoever's talking, okay. The situation was dealt with. Negativity can work that way. It grows and festers and leads to unlikely bedfellows. Unfortunately, we see the same reality in our own political climate. Rabbi Joey Felsen in the weekly.com states, if we examine the agendas of groups, we would notice that different groups' agendas often are contradictory. But the negativity against a common cause brings together organizations that would never agree on core principles. We should keep in mind that there is a commandment in the Torah not to act like Korach and pursue disputes for the sake of self-gain. We should all be building bridges that bring people together for positivity. A final thought related to the Torah portion that's read in many synagogues this week. It tells of the sins of Korach, a rebel who tried to usurp Moses' power. Yoshi Zweibach, senior rabbi of Stephen S. Wise Temple in Los Angeles, states that a colleague of his, Rabbi Dror Chaikin Gould, notes that the name Korach is related to the word karach, which means ice. The confluence of the Parsha Korach and Pride Shabbat suggests that to us then, that the sin of LGBTQ and exclusion, the sin of homophobia, is in some ways about being cold-hearted. It is about the lack of empathy, a lack of understanding, a compassion deficit. And here's the final bit of good news: we can change. As individuals and a community, we can move from hostile to tolerant, to accepting, to inclusion, to inclusive, to God-willing, embracing. And as we nurture our compassion, as we open up ourselves up, as we treat others and we want to be treated with warmth, love, well then, we'll have all the more reason to be proud.
Yesher koach.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. I never heard the connection between Korach and Kerach, but I love that coldness. I mean, I don't love the coldness, but I really like the connection. So thank you for that and for all of your teaching, and maybe we can get a copy of that and put it up so people can get a chance to look at it on through our website. I remember, some of you may remember the Saturday Night Live skit with, who was it the person, they never knew if the person was a man or a woman. Now, I can't remember the person's name. Does anyone remember this one? Help me out, someone. Calson, what was it? Who was it? Was it Pat? Okay, so, all right, so there was a skit on Saturday Night Live. It was a recurring skit. And there was this person, and they would always, like, not that it matters, right? But, like, they didn't know if this person was a man or a woman, and the person's name was Pat, so, like, you didn't know. So Terry's wife is named Pat, and you called me, and I think you said, you told me your name was Terry, and then you told me that your partner's name was Pat. And, or I had a message or something, it was Terry and Pat, and I was, like, curious, like, that's interesting, because both names could be, you know, for whoever and whatever. It's sort of irrelevant, but it just made me laugh because I always thought of Pat, and when I thought of Pat and Terry, it was Pat's was a wonderful, wonderful member of our community, and just obviously Terry's dear wife. But it always just would make me laugh about Pat and Terry being these names that could be for anyone, but they were for two very special people. So, thank you, Terry. We'll continue with Aleinu on page 282. Please rise as you are able in body or spirit. standing as you're able. Kaddish is on page 294. Our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and all those whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died within 30 days, the Shloshim period: Claudio Carmiel, John C. King, Jose Claudio Ledachevsky, Nancy L. McGahan, Margot Osofsky. We also remember those who died at this season in years past and whose yahrzeit we mark on this Shabbat. Daniel M. Berger, Dorothy Berger, Jean Feynman, William Freeberg, Irving Gallanter, Alan Goodman, June S. Jonas, Renee Kramer, Jacob A. Levin, Frida Massoff, Saul Miller, Salma Phillips, Hyman Hy Pober, Beatrice Pollock, David Rive, Dr. Alan Sells, Carl Shallett, Ida K. Snyder, Mariana Spector, Joy Weber, June Whitehill Dukart, E.G. Wilson, Benjamin Bar Zevda. Zichronam livracha, may all their memories be for blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach chirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayechon uv'yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, v'agalau v'yisman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnasa, Vitadar, Vitalev, Vitalal, Shmei Kudashah, Birchu, Leila, Min Kol Birchata, Vashirata, Tushbachata, Vanechamata, Damiran, Bialma, Vimru, Amen. Yehei Shlama, Rabba, Min Shmaya, V'chaim, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom, Bimromav, Huyaseh Shalom, Aleinu, V'al Kol Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. You may be seated.
Shalom b'ramav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen.
In just a moment, we'll conclude the service with Kiddush and Motzi. Just like to take a moment to thank all the people who participated in tonight's service. So thank you all for being here. Yasher Koach, thank you so much again to Terry Starrett. Luke is up there, making sure that we're heard far and wide and seen clearly. And Don McGahan is our music director, and we are grateful to him. And welcome to Ariana Finkelstein, who is our canto soloist today and tomorrow and next week? Not next week, but two more times before she goes back to Mount Holyoke. These are her parents, Lisa and Alan. The Finkelstein-Sklar family was my neighbors for a good long time, probably around more than 20 years on Bartlett Street. And Ariana has worked with Molly May and has sung in Hazamir and sung in many other places. You can tell she's quite an accomplished musician. Ariana, when you were really little, I don't know how old you were, but young, small enough that like your head didn't come over the not the railing, but like the wall in front of my house, and I heard this voice like singing, and I was like, wow, like what is that? This big, beautiful voice. I couldn't tell who it was because the person was smaller than my wall. And it was you. And it turns out that you had this incredible voice, even as a little kid. And tonight it was just beautiful and so lovely and so natural. And we're so glad to have you here. So thank you very much. This is the way we show our warmth on Shabbat, is like coming from our heart. We show lots of warmth to you, so thank you. But that was a lovely display. Please introduce yourself to Ariana after services. Kiddush is on page 5. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitzanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu, v'shabbat kodsho b'ahava uvratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila v'mikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Kivanu v'acharta, v'yotanu kitashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, v'yahava uvratzon, hinchaltanu, Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh ha'shabbat. Chaya. Regular color tonight. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Please come get some challah. Introduce yourself to Ariana, and there are little to-go Oneg Shabbat packages in the lobby. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
You're so good, so good.